Hey everybody, episode 147. Man, so we're in the green room, and ironically, the title of the show, right, is it should have been a podcast. Edward and I are briefly talking, like 2 or 3 minute green room. We're just gonna go live, and Edward brings up, "Hey, did you see this YouTube?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." He briefly describes it,
I
but
meant to send it to you.
I've already heard this case presented in several other places, not just. And I'll totally watch the one that you said. It's somewhere in my YouTube. I just got to check my
Yeah. No,
notifications,
got that.
right?
I just thought it was fascinating that
Well, and I was like, Edward, this should have been a podcast. Let's go live now.
well,
Let's
you
go
know,
live.
no, and you're right because it's a subject matter that I think a lot of people on the right specifically now are looking at the left, mostly the white urban
The
libtard
awfuls,
boomers. Yeah,
affluent white female
correct.
liberals,
No, it's true.
awfuls.
And their miserable lives, and how they're expressing this inward hatred outwardly on these, well, you could say false premises because they very much are the fake outrage, the fake everything about the whole thing's
Oh,
fake. They're
it's,
not really concerned about
hold
immigrants.
on. It's not fake to them because they are
No,
totally
no,
living inside this
I know.
bubble
No, you're right. I get that.
with information that doesn't match up with the real world or with
I know.
Christianity
And,
at all.
and get the outrage against the immigrants or the illegals. No, come on. No, they don't really care about the immigrants or immigration. What's one eye? They don't even know what's going on, and they don't even know what's going on with the fake Palestinian Israel slash involvement or war. Not a clue, but they're gonna fiend or fake this big heart for Palestine, thinking you don't even know anything about this culture, this so-called peoples or country, not even a country, not even a. They were
They couldn't put
in the
Palestine.
'60s.
They couldn't point Palestine on a map, and here's why: because
I know.
never existed. It
Well,
not
it was
only
a refugee camp. They had
not only not in the Bible, but not in any geography book. The
well.
places literally never existed.
If you want to go back a long, long time ago, thousands of years ago, the Canaanite people did change or were called the Palestinians, kind of sort of out of a funful joke, but that's about it. That wasn't really a realist thing.
Well, wasn't that really more of a slur against Philistines?
Well, that's where that whole thing started from. Yeah, but that's where I'm going with or the whole story comes from. But yeah, it was never a reality. They floated around from Middle Eastern country to Middle Eastern country. They all kicked them out because they're just a messy people, just absolutely bonkers. And then I think when Saudi Arabia kicked them out into this land now Israel. Yeah, they're trying
I
to
believe
claim.
that. Yeah, I think I can remember they spent time in Jordan before they were
Oh
moved
yeah,
into
and
the West
where
Bank, and then after the West Bank had to be split into two, and they moved half of them across to the Gaza
Yeah, it was
Strip.
that was a messy thing. Didn't even have to do that either. Israel could have just taken them all out if they wanted to, but no, being the nice guys they were.
Israel was still a British colony at the time. This was like the 1930s.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right, yep, yeah, and where we are today in our own countries, where what we worked with the Indians, okay, from back then, that's what we called them, so we lived with them for the treaties that we had created, because of what the help they had given each country. But that's not what happened over there. They had that confused, thinking that they actually had something to offer. They didn't. So don't look at the situation being the same as how North America treated the First Nations people, or whatever you want to call them today. That's just what we call them.
Yeah, yeah. First Nations, from my best recollection, is what we use as a current term
Right,
for
right, yeah. That's same as us then.
mostly in Canada.
Yeah.
So in America, it's the same type of deal. We're talking about indigenous peoples. Indigenous, how far back we don't know. That's a totally different story. But Native Americans, typically, First Nations people, that kind of all would fit into, if you wanted to lump something, right?
Yeah.
That's who we're talking about.
No, that's exactly right. But yeah, it's not even close to what happened over there. And I wish they would just, research that or do some thinking. I don't know what. Read a book. I don't know, but they're just they had the information so skewed, so far off. It's ridiculous, and that's why I say this fake outrage they express with the ill-gotten facts they have. it's killing us. It's just actually, I'm embarrassed for them because they're so far off the beaten path. You got to look at their thinking, wow. But that's a whole, not to make fun of them or anything,
Well,
because
so one of the things that and maybe we can get in and start here because I know it's a whole topic, and we'll see what we can
oh,
cover,
we don't have to. You know what? I can.
or we might cover the whole thing, and it takes the entire hour. It doesn't really matter to us. It's Friday. We were just like
Right.
to open up, but let me start here. Edward was what I was mentioning in our 2-minute green room
All right.
was this whole taking this you're supposed to be if you're not a Christian, if you're not charitable, and then also misconstruing Old Testament with the Gospels and trying to use it. So they're going a bunch of different ways, and they're just nitpicking a verse here and a verse there, and they're saying, "Well, see, if you look at these two verses, it says
Mm.
you are supposed to be charitable." You are supposed to work hard so that you have something to give to the poor. And
Yeah.
all right, hold on. We theologically we could actually go through all of that, but what I want to point out is what the Bible is telling you. If even if you're just going to cherry pick that very little bit from the Bible, because you clearly, if you go to church, you're not listening, or your church isn't teaching. They're not teaching.
Correct.
What the Bible is telling you is that it is on you, the human, the affluent white liberal, right, lady, woman. It is on you personally to do the charitable work or to provide for the. It is not. It is. There's nowhere in the book, the Bible, that says your government needs to collect or levy tax on you to pay for the poor. As a matter of fact, it clearly states it's on you, the individual, to care for poor.
And you know what? We see that attitude coming out in the white urban, I'll say, because that does cover a lot of area. I mean, well, even downtown city centers, that's completely polluted with the white liberals. But nonetheless, that type of that that type of thinking, I say, but it's actually from the emotional side of things on themselves because they're not thinking right, and they pretend to have this state of helpingness or whatever, but that's for the government to do. They're trying to get this. Well, let's have the government do this. But no, you're right in saying they're the ones supposed to be taking the. If you're so concerned, you take the immigrants in then in your house. You feed them. You clothe them. You pay for their cell phones and everything else that they're getting up. You do that. That's your actual job as a caring, committed Christian. But they're neither, and we know it's just like a fake outrage, like we said earlier at the very outset, of this. The whole thing's fake. We all know that. So where and why these white liberal women want to end up and go to, and let's face it, they already have everything up in arms from the court systems, divorce court mostly, and wanting everything to the max is quite crazy that they're, and that's what that psychologist woman, and I don't give much thought to psychology, none at all really, but what she was saying, in secular humanism now, is the same thing that I've been saying and yelling from the rooftops for years. And we got to get rid of this mightier than thou, and we need to have far superior showings or presence in America or North America for that matter. And why? They're not good at anything really but their own natural self or state. They're not the best soldiers. They're not the best everything. I mean, men do, of course, are going to be better at different things than they're ever going to be, but they don't want to admit that. And I don't know why. We all have different skills, gifts, whatever, to offer each other. Why muddy the waters with this ridiculous, mightier than thou thinking, 10 foot tall and bulletproof? Please.
Well,
Please.
the other thing you got to look at post World War II West has been it's been changed.
Oh,
It's been called several different things, but nation building inside of the third world, and
right.
we've learned very clearly that third world. So let's because Somalia has been picked on a lot. Let's pick on them some more. Is that their culture is, marry your first cousin. Their culture are these things. I'm not saying things that are not
True.
true.
No, I
And,
got
and
you.
when you say, well, we want you to become Western, and here's why you can't do that, is because your genetic makeup then becomes a bag of marshmallows. And right now you're like, let's just be honest, lower IQ
Well,
generations afterwards.
I know. I get that.
And then, there was stories from Paul when he was in East Timor, doing contract work. And he's
Yeah.
like, basically, we're trying to show him how to work a basic
Oh, I know. Oh,
1980s Dodge pickup truck, red wire on the pole, black wire on the pole, no computers. And he said to me,
just
Sean,
basic.
they looked at it and they didn't understand how to open the door.
I know.
They're 400 to 500 years behind the
I
West,
know.
and they have zero. Even when shown Western things, they don't want anything to do with it. And I think, well, one of
Yeah,
the things I wrote on the internet today, I was like, if the West was really actually compassionate, we would send them back and then leave them alone.
well, yeah.
Stop engaging with them. And you say, well,
Because
that's all the awfuls, though. Affluent white liberal,
hey, you know,
oh, you're not a Christian. No, here I'm actually am probably this is a better way to explain how I'm being Christian, because they don't want Christianity. They don't want your television. They don't want your fancy car. They don't all they want is, of course, what they've learned since the 1950s is that if we can just keep you guys engaged, you will send us money.
yeah.
And I'm saying we should cut that off too,
I
because they
know.
don't want to be a part of the West, and I'm totally okay with that.
It's much more than just that. Uh, and you know how stubborn we are as people. I mean, I didn't want to take on a whole new learning of a metric system when we were in school, when we already had the imperial or American standard, whatever you want to call it there.
Yeah.
We didn't want to have to learn all this different stuff that's coming at us because of, this World Economic Forum, formed, and dragging it into the European lifestyle. And now computers came up, having to learn that and everything. No one wants to go through. And a lot of people my age, just they don't know very much because they don't want to have to.
And they didn't. Some of them just chose not to.
Course, and Somalians are no different. They don't want to have to learn all this because they hit them fast. All this new way of living. I mean, from a car to everything they've had to, and they still can't drive worth that. Well, don't get me going on that. Anyways, yeah, they're not going to get it. They don't want to take to it. They're not going to take to it quite naturally. We know that. It's going to require some effort, and you don't want to put the effort in. And they're not going to turn to Christianity. I can guarantee you that right now. They're going to stick with the Muslim belief because it makes more for them than it is
Well,
just,
yeah, well,
be
especially Somali,
responsible.
but if you look at basically the northern edge of Africa, of course, Muslims are predominant currently, but they're really most of it is, and even in Asia, uh, they would prefer to go back to having their tribal gods.
Well, yeah.
Just
And you
they
know what?
honestly want to be left alone, and I think we should do what they ask. Send
Yeah.
them home and leave them alone.
Well, except for, when you mentioned, even just the outlying fringe of Africa, they've killed off a lot of Christian communities in the last, say, well,
Yes,
the last 40, 50 years,
they've been
60
doing
years
that
now.
for
So
2,000 years.
the slaughter, the massive slaughter that's been happening in Africa and all those countries there, and there's a lot of them. We don't hear much of. Well, we did get a lot of Rwanda and a lot of other countries that did go through a lot of, but no one did anything. I mean, no one cared because it was just Christians. So a lot of the African countries are still going through that slaughter today. So yes, it's the only reason why that Muslims are taking over is because they're doing it by force, just like the Catholics did back in the day when they just
Yes.
bend the knee. We'll take your house, all your money, and you're
Well, let me ask this though. As long as they stay way the fuck over there, and they have proven they don't want to be Christian and want no help
leave them
from
there.
us,
Yeah.
then what business is it of ours other than to prevent them from migrating here?
Well, yeah, no, I get that, and I don't want to hear And this goes back to the Ethiopia stories where there was starvation and whatnot. And not saying that that's not a Christian nation. I mean, there's been a lot of tossing back and forth over the decades, but you know, uh, as long as they don't come back to, well, we're going to have to think up this new scam now where we can make some money by, pretending we're going to give them money, and they never did. Or pies for Haiti and all these other stupid things that Clinton came up with that the money never got there. Trying to supposedly pretend we'll set up these companies that are going to, give them all this money. Yeah, if you want to be on your own, stand your own, and if you can't make it, you can't make it. I don't care. And we've offered you help by being this way, doing things this way. You refuse to do it, so you're on your own. I don't care. And I think more people should be thinking that way. You had your opportunities, but you thought so much better than us. So go your own way. Then, if you know it all, go ahead and do it. Knock yourselves up. We don't care.
Well, and as harsh as this sounds, I do believe,
That's not
no,
hard.
no, no, I do believe that our duties, and what I'm going to say is particularly harsh, is to at least attempt to share the gospel with them, and attempt to offer them a lift up. And we have found for the last 75 years that we get bit on the hand
I
in
know.
doing so. And so we did our Christian part. Now,
Yeah, as long as you've done
my hand is still bleeding from the wound. I'm walking away,
I know. And
right?
the Bible does give us some insight in that, as far as just dust your sandals off and continue on out. Because you're
Move
not
on to
going
the next thing.
because you're not going to, after you get the door slammed in your face and told to get lost, after trying and attempting to, they're on their own, like I said, they know it all. Let them live their lives accordingly. But yeah, you made the attempt. That is our duty, anyways, to,
Yeah.
yeah, so as long as you've done that, and the
Well, and
refusal,
I think the West has literally done that to the entire globe at
uh,
one point or another,
yeah, how
and
broke,
they always come back with bleeding hands from
I
being
know.
bitten. And so to that, I say, well, we did the ask God. Now it's time for us to just let them
Yeah.
be on their own.
It goes back, and our country's almost gone broke by the amount of money we've handed these other countries. That drives me insane because we never get any money back. You mostly just like these forgivable loans, like even when Jamaica go back like 40 years ago, 50, 45 years ago, we're just starting to develop. It was broke, and we give them all this money, and we got what, boatloads of bananas. I don't want bananas. I want cash. I don't give a crap about boatloads of bananas. And this is the trade we got ourselves into in the world. We don't get. America is the only country, and I'm going to say it. China does not do this. America is the only country we have with trade that gives us actual cash back, not these ridiculous, stupid trade things. Well, we'll give you a bunch of Oreo cookies and a bunch of shoes with these souls on. No, I don't want that. Give us the damn cash back, what we asked for it and gave you in Canadian currency or American dollars. I don't care. But the fact is, I don't want this stupid trade stuff that they're trying to suck us into. And China's the worst one for that. I don't want anything to do with China. And what's our government doing? Trying to pull us into China. Why? Just to get back at the States. What kind of silliness is this libtard thinking getting us into now? This tit for tat. And it is. It's such a liberal way of thinking. It is so immature. But we already know this anyway. So I'm not
Well,
saying
yeah,
anything
what's odd to me though is that
huh?
the politicians closest to the matter, being the premiers in Canada, think that the European Union somehow is going to all of a sudden step in when if Canada does make some trade deals and lets China into our northern neighbor,
They're trying to.
and then won't be able to figure out why all of a sudden a 50-foot wall just got built
No,
in
don't do the wall.
between
No, you know what? Take Alberta in, get
because
rid
of national
of the
security,
cards, and
right?
yeah, you know what? Yeah, but I'd say invade. I'd say definitely guard the border. I would. I'd say Alberta's already almost there now, anyways, as far as being separate and apart from this libtard monstrosity communist thing starting to form. So once they go, Saskatchewan's going to go right behind them. So is BC, and so is Quebec. So we're pretty much left with just the upper and lower, the original upper and lower Canada. That's it, and we're the lower. And of course, we've talked about this. The lower is going to go too, which is all the big border crossings. That's where Lower Canada is. All the important real estate, south of Toronto, right to Buffalo and Detroit. That's what you want. And all the Great Lakes ownership, not just half of them, but all of them, and all the
Look,
crossings.
look, we'll just take it, and you know what? Detroit
Yeah,
might wanna, actually move their t or Buffalo even might wanna move their NFL team to,
I've been
Toronto.
I've
Why
been
not? I mean, the weather is exactly the fucking same in Toronto as it is in well, it's worse in Buffalo. It'd be better, it'd
saying,
be an upgrade.
if it didn't have the lake effect snow, it'd be a
It'd be
lot,
an upgrade to move to Toronto.
wouldn't it? Yeah, actually, I've been saying for years I want to make Detroit great again, and taking in some of Southern Ontario might be that way. Windsor and Detroit becoming one city, with that bridge going back and forth between the two. This might be, what makes the whole thing great again. I don't know, but we can do it. We just got to get rid of this libtard
If
government.
if we ever had to put physical, so the way I picture it, if we ever actually had to do something physical to Canada, it would not look at all like because everyone's like, well, Afghanistan, right? It just isn't the way the America military operates anymore.
But why would you
What
want to?
what I would think, just in the way you look at Russia and Ukraine, not only would we eliminate the threat of China, whatever threat that Carnival Carney brings in,
Oh God, we
we would go ahead and take 20 or 30 miles north of our border and consider it a DMZ.
Well, that's all it can. That's the whole population of our country. 85 or 90% of us live at the border. So you might just
No,
extend the border another
look,
60
if it
miles.
starts at a DMZ of 20 miles north,
There.
you're already in the DMZ, so you're protected by America.
You know
Uh,
what?
but then then that's when you guys go, hey, look, screw you. We're just going to apply to become territories
Why
and
do
then
you make it?
eventually states.
Why do you make it like a 45 or a 60-mile
Somebody is
encroachment
who was it? I
on the
believe I
day?
wanna give credit where credit's due. Tony Katz said WIBC, Tony Katz said we should do the same damn thing on our southern border, and he goes 10 miles to start, and then if the cartels don't stop fucking around, we take 50 miles of the border.
You
And
should
then if the cartels still don't stop fucking around,
you should start, you should start with the
and he's
50
like,
first.
I'm not trying to expand the United States. I'm adding a 10-mile buffer zone to the southern border as a DMZ. And if you still don't hear me, I'm taking more.
Yeah, no, you know what? That's a good plan, but I don't think it's aggressive enough, to send the big wake up call. I think we need to do more faster, because no one's really going to care. 10 miles just isn't enough. It doesn't really affect that
I
many.
hear you. I think it's an effective, solid message in a world that is really looking at expansionary powers, still from a World War II standpoint of or World War One, both the world wars, Russia,
Correct.
Germany, and they don't want to see America start doing that, even though America's been doing that since America became a country.
It is ridiculous how America got sucked into that Second World War, anyways. How that happened, and how you know, and even back then, the League of Nations, or what you want to call the United Nations today, and the ridiculous branches they have, including NATO, which we got to get rid of. But how they sucked, and they did purposely get Japan to do that bombing, to suck the states into this big war. And post World War II, what happened after that, the forming of all these different entities that you want to call government organizations, which really aren't, but they pretend to be. And Belgium,
Non-government organizations that
what's
act,
that?
non-government NGOs,
Yeah, yeah,
non-government organizations that act with
correct.
the authority of a government.
Yeah, but they really don't have the power that they pretend they do. And like Belgium, that country you call, it's not even a country. Why do we even call it Belgium? It's not even a country. It's just a political, I don't even know what you want to call it, a fortress, or a hold, something for
I mean,
these.
they gave the world not waffles. I mean, give them
Yeah,
a little credit.
and chocolate. Yeah, very good. That's all they got. So who's throwing the money towards them? We already know all that. That's where all this carbon tax money is going. To feed these NGOs, you want to say, and these governmental institutions that we're all worshiping today, that we got to crush and finally get rid of and be self-governing countries once again, which we were doing just fine before these idiots in the 70s started, barking out orders to us and telling us, how to jump and how to march. And, we're not marching that drum anymore, so we got to stop that. But people, I don't think the majority of Canadians and maybe a lot of Americans just aren't familiar with how deep in policy writing that they actually have gotten into the West. And that's what we have to talk about a lot more. I think to the average Joe, mostly the libtards, because they have still the dumbest people on earth. I mean, I hate to say it, but they are so, I don't even know what to use for a word that's even polite. There is no way to
I
be.
well, no, I think a lot of it's they are misinformed. I don't know what the correct word is because they've changed the term so many times, but
Yeah,
but
that's
they,
right.
they're taught the wrong thing. They're literally taught.
There's no way to be
They're not
diplomatic
taught
with
the actual history.
right.
They're taught some sort of revised version of it.
And I think that's, because if they're, I got to say, it's a whole subculture within the culture. You mentioned culture before with the Somalians, and yeah, most of their cultures because they had no choice, so they believe and do
Yeah.
these things. They have no choice but to do that. Otherwise, I don't think they'd be marrying their own relatives. Well, not that I know of, but I think if there is a, nah, I know what you're saying, but
Been
I don't.
going on for like 2,000 years in most of
God,
these places.
well, that explains the head shape. But anyways,
No,
if
no, no. It literally explains, especially in Somalia, it explains the shape of their head. That
you know,
was from inbreeding.
unfortunate, but
Thousands of years of it.
unfortunately, no one's going to go there to tell them or teach them any different or any reality because they, I think, are used to it by now and like that reality, and it's going to
For
be better than anybody
75
else.
years, the West has tried to teach
Yeah,
the
I
third
know.
world not to marry your cousin.
We have done that with
This
so many
came,
other
but
countries.
remember, these all remember. This isn't like other than the ones that live here, which are still not westernized.
Not yet.
When you look at this, when you go to Somalia, when you go to East Timor, when you go to parts of Ethiopia, go like I could just start naming countries, especially in Africa, in Asia.
You don't have to because they know.
They live a tribal lifestyle,
Yeah,
so their reach, unlike in the West, where it's so easy for us humans, especially young humans, to meet someone of the other sex that we would have zero genetic
implications.
commonalities.
Right.
That's why they go, oh well, you can't marry your sister, but your cousin that lives a tribe over, about a 20-mile walk,
Yeah.
she's gonna marry you. And this, so well, you got to look like totally different
I,
than Western, even 1400s Western culture or 1500s Western culture.
you don't even have to go
Where,
that.
where
Yeah.
in the West, it was still this massive amount of people that you could meet and marry that were not of your own genetic makeup.
Yeah, and you don't even have to go that far in the detail. We just know from the last, just say 50 years, the last 50 years alone, all the money we've dumped in these different countries, they're still living in the same grass mud shacks. They haven't changed. They don't want to change. They just want to carry on doing and we're all the same. The least amount of effort possible to get through the day. That's what they're doing. That's
Yep.
all they want to do. So you're not going to change that. How do you breed that out of somebody? You got to have to want to be a better society. You want to have to and want to have water purification systems or your own wells or whatever. You want to have to do that on your own. They don't have that desire or drive.
Longshanks tried to breed that out of the Scots, and he
Which,
was his army lost.
which who did?
Longshanks.
Never heard of that.
So this would have been what, the 1400s. This
Oh,
is
oh God,
like
you go way back. Oh, okay, that's why. Yeah,
the movie Braveheart.
yeah,
Let's
right.
for
I was,
reference. So
yeah,
the king Longshanks, he literally said, on the night of your marriage, one of my nobles will take your wife into the bed on the first night. He
yeah.
literally was like, we're just going to breed out the Scottish people from existence.
And that didn't work out too well. They made a good start.
There's been
Wow.
lots of times over history where people have tried this. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't, it obviously doesn't work, but
I was just going to say, but without even going back that far, Thomas Sowell made some great. You remember him? He's one of my favorites, and so was Milton Friedman too. I
Both
think they're
both
classmates
brilliant.
back in the day, but yeah, he was saying that it's geography plays such an important part. Now, we get the libtards saying, "Well, they're going starving. We have to give them money." This is where they come up with this great idea of scamming money out of us. But as he says, it's mostly geography. If you're living way up in the mountains there, and you can only get up there by a river coming down, you're not using the river to go up, so you're gonna have to figure another way of getting all the food and everything up there because you ain't growing it in that geographic area. So geography plays such an important part of some of these poor civilizations. He
Well,
said,
and if you would have just left them alone, the people in the high country would typically eat a lot of meat, like goats and sheep,
"There you
because
go."
they can herd them in the
Yeah,
high country. The
and that's
people down in the grasslands would eat lots of vegetation because it's super easy to grow, right?
correct.
The people on the rivers would have eaten a lot of fish.
Mhm. But but don't be going up there and throwing a computer at them because they don't have any hydro to plug them into anyways. I mean, your efforts are fruitless as
They
far as
don't.
what you
They
think
don't
you're
want it.
doing.
They don't. And
Yeah.
yeah, all to all the awfuls, the affluent white female liberals.
Mm,
By the way, they're probably not listening to this. On X,
it
you can
wouldn't be.
actually just hit the up shovel button and text it to them so they can see this. Or you can send them the Rumble link, even more importantly, because uh, if you were to give them these things, they don't want them. And you say, well, how do you know? We've been doing it for 75 years in the West, ever since the end of World War II. We
True.
have tried to rise up or nation build or bring up the third world, and they
Hmm.
have proved every single time they want nothing to do with Western culture. This is their culture. They want to be their culture. They want to be their religion, whether it is worshiping a cow or maybe that's hated in a different one. And they're worshiping a golden rock.
Yeah, there's
That's
all
what
kinds
they
of.
want. And we have given the opportunity for them to hear the gospel. We have given them the training that it would be necessary to defend themselves, and they have rejected every single bit of it.
You
It's
know,
time to cut them loose, to do the humanitarian thing. Cut them loose.
you
Let
know,
them
I
be
got
who
to.
they want to be. Wait, aren't you the people that say let people be who they want to be?
Well,
Let them be who they want to be.
but then you're going to have to stop these bleeding heart liberals in their news stories of look at these poor people. They have so many.
I
They're
don't.
starving.
If we cut
Well,
off all the funding of all of it,
yeah, got to start doing
then
that
it
because
goes back to
we can't keep going.
then it goes back to what I opened with. If you say we're anti-Christian because we're not doing this, I
Mm,
want to remind you, God did not put this or assign this to governments to do. He assigned it to you. So go
correct.
do it.
And you know
All
what?
your, get all your friends together in the van
Yeah,
or in your Escalade. Sorry, in your Escalade, and
take them
go
back up
do
to
it.
Martha's. Take them back up to Martha's Vineyard, then and I'll
Oh
help out there. All you
no! I
liberals.
mean,
Oh, we already did that once.
shit.
That
Fly
didn't go well.
over there, buy an Escalade, and drive in to the tribes and help them.
Yeah.
Help the Somali tribes.
While we're on this
And then,
subject,
and then, and then while you're there, try to figure out why Somaliland has been trying to leave Somalia for
oh,
50 years.
that's a good. But I want to get to this point first. Culture. We're always throwing that term around so liberally these days, and I blame the white libtard, women for using this term, and they don't understand what culture is. They say, "Well, our culture, their culture." It all comes down to this: we can't be a multicultural country. We can be a multi-ethnic one, but we can't be. We
Yeah.
can't have these different conflicting beliefs, combating beliefs. Because it takes out people. That's where civil wars happen. That's where things start coming apart. You can have a multi-ethnic one, like America, like Canada, but you can't have a multicultural one. And I wish these libtards would stop spreading that stupid. You know what? Uh, this DEI thing, this the divisive.
Diversity is
Always
not
been,
a
it's
diversity
always been
is not a strength
unity.
at all.
What's that?
Diversity is not a strength at all.
No, when you start diversifying,
And by diversity, we know exactly what you mean. People of different colors.
but
And I'm
not
gonna go,
just
wait
different
a minute,
cultures.
wait a minute. You're actually saying different cultures, but you're using the word colors.
I don't. It doesn't have to be colors. Even you're right, but it just cultures alone. What you believe in, what your belief system is. Do you believe we shouldn't worship cows and not use them for food? Do you believe that we should be doing this or believe in that? It's the culture is your belief, and that was my point. In North America, both our governments have God at the head. Christian-based founded countries, not Muslim, not Buddhist, or all the other ones that we have to contend with in the world now that are competing for money and time and space and government,
Well,
blah blah blah.
not only Christian, what most people would that are liberals. So I struggle with the term libtards because I think we use words too many times and then they lose their meaning. So I'm just going to use the word liberals.
All right.
You're welcome to use whatever language you want on this podcast. I really, just to make a point, I think when liberals look at Christians, they see a big, like, diluted cup of coffee that's now been added with milk and sugar and bobo bubbles, and that's not what. Whereas your country and my country, in a lot of the West was built out of Protestantism, which
Most of it.
would be considered politically very radical right, whereas actually it's not. It's just ideologically get government out of my church building. That's it.
Yeah. No, and you know what?
That's
Uh, where's that one country, Puerto Rico, we talked about so many times?
it.
Christopher Columbus actually.
Territory. It's a territory of the United States that's tried to apply for statehood several times and failed
But you know what?
miserably.
That was the very first country Christopher Columbus ran into,
Might
not
have been Puerto
America,
Rico.
and they still haven't changed. Look at the poorness of that country. They're not any better off. I mean, this is just a cultural belief system or the culture that they've, had and want and stick to. Let them have it. And I don't think they should be any part of America. Okay, good friends and whatnot. I think Cuba would be a better partner than Puerto Rico would ever be.
You know
Otherwise,
what? There's honestly some truth to that. Only because if you look at the Cuban population that has escaped, they assimilate immediately
I
when they get
know.
to the shores of America.
Yeah,
They
and
want to be American.
they're more Christian
They
based,
don't want to be communist.
albeit they're more Catholic. They got sucked into that because of the.
We can work through those issues,
Of course, yeah, I
right?
get that. Just from proper education, do some reading, people. I mean, come on, it's right in front of you. Don't listen to these idiot priests and these pope. Oh my gosh, there's another one.
Honest human.
Yeah,
Paul, I build my church.
this is
No, that's not
um,
what any of the translations said. But
no,
anyway,
yeah.
sidebar.
But
Sidebar.
I'm just saying that, with these cultures and people understanding what you actually believe in is your culture. And so be careful of what you're getting yourself involved in. And there's some pretty freaky, stupid things floating around today. And don't get me going on the UFO, lizard people, stuff like that. Oh my, just stop it already. I don't want to hear, just try to control and fix the things that you can control. Never mind the airy fairy stuff, well, I could say
It's on
unicorn.
the doom scroll. You
Really?
listen. Hey, listen. Look, you mentioned it, so I can check it off.
All right, go ahead. I didn't know what we were doing tonight. I had no idea. I just thought I'd pop on for.
Aliens, of course. Yeah, whatever. I dismiss it too, but
Yeah, no,
the
yeah,
conversation's been interesting. Honestly, people are like, because the general conversation is like, well, they're fallen demons, or
yeah.
they're angels. And it's like, well, yeah.
They,
All
they,
right, you're starting to actually grasp a concept that we can totally talk about. And if you're calling them aliens because they're weird to you and they only sort of look like you and I, but
yeah,
do resemble us because they were made in the image of God, now we can start to have a conversation. If you think they are from a star that is four, maybe more Light years, let me explain. You have to be traveling at the speed of light for 4 years to get here.
You
And
can't.
it's so far physics has improved. You cannot travel at the speed of light at all.
No, you can't. And you know what? Even if you did, and you can go faster at the speed of light because everything, let's see, is divided by four, so you get a quarter of that time of what you're estimating it at the speed of light. But it would do you no good because by the time they got back, 4 million years would have passed. So there's no one to talk to. Everybody like it's no of no value traveling at the speed of light. And these ding dongs in these school systems haven't got the education to tell the students the truth that no, forget all that stuff we said before, including the Darwin theory, because none of it's true, none of it works out, and none of it's believable. Uh,
No, but you also can't convince me that there's not algae or other life throughout the galaxy. I just don't believe there's humanoid life.
Well, you know what? No, because you need water, and water is only here on Earth. They're trying, and water is one of the most fantastic, super. I've heard it everywhere I go. People are saying, especially ministers, water is the most laziest substance. It always wants to find its own level, and blah blah. Water is the most powerful, ridiculously odd substance in the entire universe. You'll find it nowhere else in the universe will you find it but Earth. And I got to say that it does everything opposite to how physics works. You think that when it freezes, it's going to do the same thing like steel and everything else and contract, and when it gets hot, it expands. Nope, it does the exact opposite. And I'm thinking, well, how does that happen? This liquid and everything, when it freezes, how does it get lighter instead of heavier like everything else? Because it does, because ice floats. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any water because every year it'd be freezing from the bottom up, and pretty soon you wouldn't have any water left because it takes too much energy to melt ice. Now, we all know that. If you try to watch water boil, it takes hours. And you think you're there for an eternity watching a pot of water boil because it takes that much energy, where hitting a piece of steel is just like that. So, people just don't understand how valuable and how really different that substance of water really is. They haven't got a clue because they're not, again, these stupid kids.
Well, I mean, you can actually you can break it because I personally have. You
What's
can
that?
separate the two elements, hydrogen
Well,
and
yeah, you can break it down
oxygen,
atomically.
and
Molecule.
then you're creating a super oxygen rich,
Yeah, you
uh,
can.
and then you're creating hydrogen, which is it's combustible, and everyone
Yeah,
goes, "Oh, it explodes!" No, 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 no. It just burns super fast. It's
it
combustible.
is.
What does hydrogen need to do to combust? It needs to have an oxygen reaction.
Remember, if you have enough of it, it will make it a hydrogen bomb. There's no doubt about that. But I'm just talking in
Well,
small amounts.
technically it's a combustion. It's a
Mhm.
burn.
Right.
It's just a
Well,
burn so fast that the human eye looks at it as a bomb, and this is why a lot of times it's used in rocket fuel.
yeah.
They just separate the elements of water,
Well, it's also
and
cheap
then
to
they
do.
reintroduce them at the nozzle where they have the fire.
It's also very cheap because hydrogen is everywhere. It is the most abundant element in the entire universe. Hydrogen, and you know what? Getting it out of water by just stretching the water molecule and popping off the two hydrogen ones is easy to do. And who was
Super
that
easy.
one guy that created that car in Ohio, your next door state to you? Well, from before. Stanley Meyer that invented that car that runs on water by doing that same thing, knocking off the hydrogen molecules as it's going in the injectors, not having a tank with the stuff, just doing it on demand. So the injector is, when it takes it out of the nozzle into the cylinder, because as I said, it implodes and explodes 1,800 times its size. That's what's driving the pistons down. That
Right, giving
not just from burning hydrogen, like everybody's. Oh, we'll just have tanks of hydrogen and burn it. No, that's not what's going to be the most efficient. The most efficient, so that you can run non-loop on just one tank of water to go across all of North America. That's what's doing it. It's that explosion, that 1,800 times its size. That's what's driving the piston down. That's where the energy comes from. People haven't figured that out yet, or maybe they do, but then again, you'll realize water is so cheap, you're not making any money.
that's when, yeah,
There's no money in it. You know, you can,
That's when people are gonna go, Wait a minute here.
and that is why
How do I sell that?" Because
I know, and this is why oil is becoming expensive now, and the dirty fuel, because people are getting on to, hey, oil is everywhere. It always makes itself every day. We're never going to run out of oil. So then they'll have to come up with another scam. Oh, well, you know what? It's a dirty fuel. We don't want that anymore, because once they realize it's so easy to obtain and it's never going to run out, it's the second most abundant liquid on the entire planet, and it keeps renewing itself every day, every second. So as soon as people, all the whole world knows that, then no, it's dirty. We got to get rid of that and go on to electricity. We'll have to use sunlight and wind or something. Just we have to stay away from the easy freeze stuff. And this is why we're redoing everything to this supposed cleaner fuel. And you know as well as I do, if you want a clean burning car with gasoline or diesel, you can do it. It just
it's easy.
I
It's
know, but
super
this is
easy.
why
It's called a catalytic converter on a
and
gas
people don't want to
car.
hear that. That's right. But yeah, we could go on for hours on this one
When you bought your
conversation.
last gas car, it had already had the catalytic converter.
Correct. I know, right?
And you know what comes out your tailpipe? Plant food.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Even when you're running,
That's what comes out the tailpipe.
you're already
Carbon.
running. You already get water dripping out of your exhaust pipe, anyways, because you're already
Yes.
using hydrogen. People don't realize that even when burning oil, you're still burning off because it is a carbon. And there's another thing too. How in the heck did you actually think that came from dinosaurs? You know how many millions of barrels of oil that we use in the United States and Canada alone in a day?
There was
We
this
go through
man. There was this
millions of
rule.
hundreds of millions of barrels all over the world. There's never been that many dinosaurs. You need a stack of them like a mile. No, 5 miles high, all the way around the earth. Just to say, it's just too
When,
even.
when I all right, when I was working for the government, I was buying approximately 2.2 million gallons of diesel fuel every
Yeah.
year, and I
Well,
had to
yeah.
and I was negotiating with a couple of different companies, to hedge prices. But it's the government, were they really hedging prices anyways? I would always make fun of them because I'd go see them once a year personally in office. But hey, here's kind of what we're doing. I can't tell them everything. I can't give them my game plan, right? But I'm just, hey, I'd be interested if you're going to bid on my next year's contract. And oh, by the way, recycling dinosaurs is the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. I really appreciate that you guys are able to go find the dinosaurs and put them into the trucks and bring the trucks, and they would just die fucking laughing, dude.
It's so true.
Die laughing.
It's so ridiculous what we've been taught in these school systems, these idiot teachers that we had, and people have no, even today walking around, they think a lot of the stuff we learned in school was true. In fact, I mean, you got to laugh at it. We were even taught that, looking back as a kid, that, the reason why that we melt ice is because of salt. Remember, we talked about it because the reflection of the sun on the faces of the process of the crystals of salt was what melted. Well, what's doing it at nighttime then when it's dark, you dumb dumb. But anyways, this is some of the stuff that we learned that was
Does
so
anyone know that the Arctic and the Antarctic polar caps are salt ice?
well, of course, because it's salt water. Yeah, maybe they don't probably know that. Maybe they don't, but
I don't know if they
no,
do.
no,
It's an honest question. I don't know if they do. I don't
there's a
know if
lot
they
of
do.
snow that does land up there that would still be fresh. So it's not all
Yeah,
salt.
of course. Top layers could absolutely be from snowfall
The only
or
reason
rain.
it's so cold that salt water doesn't freeze till minus 18 degrees Celsius or
Sure.
0 Fahrenheit. That's the only reason why that we have ice up there to begin with, and why it does melt, because eventually coming down to the warmer waters, of course, it's going to melt faster. But yeah, we don't taught that stuff in school because these idiot teachers don't know a bloody thing about anything. No physics, no science, hardly any math, and no history whatsoever, because you look at that, what we're taught in history, so wrong. But yeah, we can go on and on about what we're taught in the school system, and
I
yours is no better than ours. Yours
It's
is the
so
same.
bizarre because I was taught in elementary school that you can use a solar panel. Not no, I'm talking different. I'm talking about something that we weren't using to create electricity. I'm talking about something that's basically a sheet of metal with a very, very black surface and then a piece of glass placed
Oh
upon
yeah.
it. So it
Hmm.
becomes a mirror, but a solar panel.
Yeah.
And then you just introduce water to that, and the sun evaporates the water. The salt stays on the panel. The water evaporates up and can be collected. You remove
Hmm.
the salt from water.
Yep. There's so many different things.
And we did experiments on that in fourth grade.
So many things we could be doing and teaching kids today instead of this social engineering they're so in depth in right now with, oh my God, it's a mess. It's an absolute nightmare. And these teachers, they don't want to lose their jobs. They're not going to say anything or speak up. It's just got, so the
That's
school
what it
board.
is. That's what no, honestly, all the teachers that do because everyone says, "Well, teachers are bad." No, slow down.
Yeah, exactly.
All teachers are surviving because that's
That's
what
the
their
job.
degree is, and that's what their degree will let them do for a job, and so they just suck it up and suffer,
You gotta. It's just like,
and teach about how Jesse Jackson was not a super racist his
no.
entire life.
And you know what? That's something, again, it, that even goes back to what we were talking about psychology. I mean, once you find out that psychology isn't true, isn't real, what are you going to do if you spent all that time and money on a subject matter that's now your career? And what are you going to do now? You're going to go back to school, or what are you going to do, or get a real job? But then again, no one wants to do those. So
Well, I get it. At this point, you gotta be like, where are the real jobs? They're all about to be taken over.
the ones that nobody wants, the hard ones, those are the ones that nobody wants to do.
Yeah, and even those 10
Mhm.
years from now will be
I
done by
got you.
robots.
Correct. True. Well,
I
you know
mean,
what?
oh, you're right. Seriously, like digging cobalt out of a mine. That people did, and they made a real honest living.
Oh yeah.
They're not. Nobody's going to do that in 10 years.
I'm even talking about the building trades, even that stuff nobody wants to do. Nobody, there's so many easier ways of making money, uh, either being a
Yeah,
rocket
off of
scientist
off of
or
defrauding the American taxpayer.
now you
It's
know it.
super easy.
Now you
It's
know how
super
this thing
easy.
expanded so much is because
The
all the
whole world's been doing it.
I know. And that was the biggest surprise about the American dollar being so spread so far so fast when it first was introduced as a currency. How all these countries were having money, and because they're trying to keep track of the American dollar for its value. How these other banks in these other countries were lending it out and thinking, well, how'd you get to do that? And they were doing the same thing as everybody else was. So that's how we got in this great big mess, and now
That
the
that
loans you have.
that's been tried and true since the shekel was first
Oh, yeah.
introduced. The actual first currency was if we can spread our currency into your culture, we can now at least have some sort of leverage over you.
Let's
And,
take it
and
away.
America didn't do anything different when they did the
No.
same thing post. This started post World War One when they started doing the same thing and said, no, you're not going to trade on the British dollar. Oh, the British are like, oh, America's got, screw you, America. We'll create a euro. And America's like, oh, yeah, well, we can print more dollars than you can print euros. And
Uh-huh.
we'll start pallet dropping it into third world countries.
They didn't have
And
to
they
do that.
will,
They took to it quite naturally because it had value back after the
yes,
Second
it
World
did.
War. And this
It
is
did.
where, but everybody's doing this. What the Greeks said 2,500 years ago. When a society gets successful enough, they're going to get big enough. They're going to need more agriculture, more land. So they just take a slice off the next guy that's not doing so well, or call a war. I don't care what you call it, but that's what happens, and that's where we are today. So saying, "Oh, we have to give it back because you took over." No, you dum dums. That's how the world's been working since it was created. You idiots! But don't have to tell them that because these bleeding heart liberal women have no understanding and no brains in their head to be able to decide or decipher this information themselves on their own by simple reasoning. Nope, can't do it. So why do we have conservatism? To teach these libtards to know exactly how we got to be where we are. But nope, not going to hear it. They refuse to hear it because it hurts my feelings. So yeah, that's the
All right.
problem. We
Well,
could do
listen,
this for an hour. I could go on, but I'm not going to.
we're gonna go a little bit longer. We still got time. But this is also where I've come to. My political ideology has changed a little bit.
What?
Hold on. I'm a conservative. I am a constitutional conservative. But more and more, I find myself becoming a separatist, Edward.
But that's where the whole nation started from. That's how America was started in Canada with being a separatist. What do you mean? That's the base of who we are. That's not changing.
I think, well, part of it's probably age, but I want, I want even less. Like, I've always wanted a little bit less government, but
Yeah.
now I want so much less that I
Well,
really don't I just don't wanna be seen by them. If they don't see me, I'm in a good spot.
You know,
Which is what and look, the liberals that will hear that, they'll be like, "Oh, you just wanna go live up in them hills and sharpen your sticks and be a retard," 'cause
but
it's really amazing to me that they think, mountain people or high country people, it no matter where they are in the
yeah,
in the West, all of the West, not just the United States, that they
but
think that they are super dumb, uneducated people. And I say,
yeah, I know.
can I present to you the Somali Muslims? And then
Yeah,
I will debate any one of them that you have. Any of my friends that actually do already live in the high countries that you hate so much, the high territories that just want to be left alone.
that's
I
exactly what
bet
they're
you,
there, though.
I bet you they have read 1,000 more books than you ever have,
And,
white liberal woman.
I wouldn't doubt that. And you know what? When you get close to the well, even in your 50s, people want to get out of the cities and back to just being left alone because they don't. Every second you turn around, the government's trying to get into your pockets and get you for this, and they want to know this or control that. Or
Hospitality
who
tax,
wants that anymore?
transportation tax,
Yes, just leave
another
us alone.
property tax.
And no one wants that to keep happening. Citizens will be left alone. Get off my back. That's what they want from the government. Just leave me alone, get lost. And that's why they're in the mountains.
Give me
There's
a
nothing
court
to do.
system because you told me I can't kill my neighbor.
Well,
Give me a police department
I'm
so
with
that my neighbor could say, "Get out here, we're about to fight." And then give me national security. That's about
yeah,
all I need.
yeah. And you know what? With how we've again, the corruptness of our governments is why we've got so big and expanded so fast into stuff we don't even really need. People don't really realize that though. But because some of the relatives' jobs depend on us, we're not going to say anything. But it's true. We could shave off, I don't know, 85% of what we call government today and be better off for it. And what do we do with all the money? Well, we could pay off our debts in a couple of years, for crying out loud. But don't get me going. Like I said, we could be another 2 hours just on that one alone.
Oh,
And
or instead of paying nearly 40% of our income into taxes, we could pay like 4%.
we could just abolish income tax and
Well,
land
yeah,
tax.
I'm totally okay with abolishing income tax. I am not a libertarian. I will not abolish all taxes because we have to pay for the court system and we have to pay
Military.
for the military.
Yeah. And the dollar, the making of the dollar and securities of that, it's a little bit of money there involved, but
And
not much.
all right, they
But
can get 0.001%. Totally fine.
yeah, yeah. Well, that was the three major things that makes entice Americans together, anyways. Having to pay for a common military, a same dollar that everyone trades with in the
A
countries,
judge,
and the
judicial.
I missed one. Yeah, the money, the military, and there's one more.
Yeah,
What did
the judiciary, so that
I do?
people could have some place to adjudicate arguments. No, no, it
Yeah.
was, and
All right.
especially that came up because the question came because they didn't want to be a federalist type of government. Is what if State A has a problem with State B? Who will adjudicate that? And that's when Congress said we will create the judiciary, the judges,
Gotcha. Yep. Hmm.
and that totally needed.
Yeah, the actually the three forms of government really get right back to legislative,
Well,
the
yeah, so legislative, judiciary, and so the executive,
that's it,
judiciary, and
executive.
legislative.
Yeah, uh-huh. We're set up the same way too, but we don't have the same representation you guys have. Matter of fact, ours is pathetic. We don't even have any true representation, for crying out loud. And it's so crooked voting wise. Yeah, don't even get into that conversation because our two countries are not the same. We're a constitutional
Oh, I feel
monarch.
bad for you because we're struggling here with our
That's why
representation.
taking Canada in, maybe Alberta and Saskatchewan because they're conservative provinces, but you get to Toronto North, so libtarded. So they're the idiot. Actually, those people are idiots. Absolutely, they've been taught the stupidest things. They still believe. Even when I was up there, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, when they, yeah, they're going to open the Ring of Fire. The Liberals are going to do it for us. They still don't have it. They promised them, oh, they're going to set up some camps and whatnot, throw them a little bit of money, but they haven't done anything, haven't, and they still believe in this. That's how idiotic these people are. They're just led by the nose so easily, thinking, yeah, I believe these people. It's like believing that stupid mayor from New York City. They're going to have free bus rides, free this, free food, everything. What's the first thing it does? Nope, I'm raising property tax 10%.
I'm raising the rate on bus rides.
Yeah,
That
and
was
then
the
another.
first thing he did.
I
The
know
first
all
thing he
this
did.
free stuff, and yeah. So they promised you the world, delivered nothing again, because that's a typical liberal playbook. And these people in New York City going, "Huh? I never seen that one coming." Are
All
you
right. Well,
kidding me?
do you?
What's
Is
that guy's name, by the way? I keep
there
forgetting.
a way to explain that? So the people that overwhelmingly voted for this, maybe they really didn't understand, and I'm willing to. I think some did, but hear me out. I think there's people that didn't understand that when they were out there chanting "tax the rich," they didn't realize that Ma'am Domney saw them
That's his name.
as the rich.
Yeah.
They had no idea. They thought it was some other group of people. They had no idea it was property owners. And you go, well, wait, but I don't own a 5 apartment brownstone. And,
Yeah.
and we go, no, but you're a property owner.
Hmm.
There's people who can't afford to own a property. You are the rich.
Yeah.
You were chanting to tax. And
Yep.
like if you like it really could break that down and have a conversation over a beer or a coffee with an actual Ma'am Domney voter liberal,
Mm.
without I know, but if you could say, hey, did you realize you were the rich? You were out protesting against this is what socialism is? Do you think they would go, I fucked up?
No.
Or do you think they'd just continue to double down and go, no, 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 we're going to fix this. It's not me. The property owner that owns up because it's New York City, has a $5 million, 1,200 square foot property.
I know. It's
Right?
outrageous. I know.
Who is now going to have to pay, so 5 million times 10% annually is $500,000 in property tax for
Hey,
all of yous in Rio Linda.
yeah. And
That's what
the new
taxing the
regulations.
rich looks like
I
to
know, and it
socialists.
goes back to that, promise from United Nations that all these countries, they're going to bail out and help up. They weren't helping them up; they were lowering, they were taking us down to their level. So they had it backwards. They just didn't want to be that honest, saying, "Well, our real plan was taking you guys down to nothing to be at their level of nothing. It wasn't about them bringing them up to our level." But they didn't tell the truth that way. Otherwise, no one would buy into it. And here we are now with these same United Nations libtard lies that, and I keep using the word libtard because liberal, you call a person liberal, they look at it as a compliment because they think, hey, nothing wrong being a liberal. Look at the JFK family. Blah, blah, blah. Shut up already. You're a libtard because you're stupid, ridiculous, and you're retarded. And I want to combine all those into one word to show
Would
you.
it's 2026? Would progressive socialists be more accurate? It's not because they are not liberal anymore. They're not right. We obviously
Progressives are still libtard.
uh,
Libertarians are still that. So,
progressive socialist.
well, yeah, but even
That's the
progressive,
term I was thinking.
I
Maybe.
can't. Yeah, well, that's yeah. Socialism just is that, and we always know. And what is our friend Rush Limbaugh? God, I miss that guy. His only job of socialism, the only
Well,
job of socialism, is to usher in communism. That's
it
his
is. It
sole
is.
job, and no one understands that. We have these people in our own parliament standing up saying, "We are socialists. We love socialism." All they're saying is, "We're communists." And the whole country's going, communist? No, we're not communists. We're
Oh,
socialists. A big
that,
difference because they're idiots again, not taught right, haven't got a braid in their heads and just going along with what CBC or CNN, in other words, tells them and looking at that as gospel. Well, why would they lie to us? Oh my God. It's embarrassing as a country having to be from a nation that's so libtarded up. I'm telling you, it's just embarrassing. Ugh. And I know so many liberals that just, I have to look at them just, oh my God, how can you even think that way? Just, there's no reasoning. You can't, this is to this, is that is to that. Simple reasoning, they don't have it. It's just not there. It escapes them. It just amazes me. But like I said, we could go into another hour of how I see that and how sick that really is. But that's just for today. It's already over an hour, and I know we only had an hour.
No, 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 no. That's true. Let me. Let's see if I can get you on one more rant.
It's
Circle
not
that
hard.
back to my what. All right. So where I was going, right?
Okay.
Of the liberal white woman
Oh, yeah.
using a couple of verses out of the Bible and trying to explain how to
Oh,
all of us
interesting.
how we're not
Mm.
Christian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could go farther, but
Because it's us not
yeah.
following the
would
law,
you would
not
you like to
them.
would you like to respond to Karen?
Well, you know what? To respond to Karen, it's not us that's not following the law. It's them that are not. We have borders, and we have
Wait,
certain.
were there borders in the Bible?
Yeah, of course, there's different countries, and yes, of course, you didn't dare cross over from Roman territory into Mr. Favorite, uh, uh, society, the old Persians. No, you didn't want to do that because they were just
Wait,
close
we're
all the time.
well, there were borders, but were you couldn't just tell the government they were fascist and go
Oh
fuck
God, no.
ice?
No. They, and that's another thing too. People didn't
Like the
realize.
Bible didn't let you just tell them to fuck ice?
Yeah, I know. Could you imagine that? No, you'd be killed. You had your head chopped off already. But people don't realize that because we've been far too nice as individuals. Not saying it's the wrong way our societies have gone, because I'm not for that. I agree with how our legal systems are set up. We just don't use them right, because we have these. Well, how do we say these libtard people again? You're running the asylums, and oh my gosh! But yeah, they just made a complete mess of them. And I know it's because they have ulterior motives. Let's not make any mistake. They want the communism to come in. They love that, and they're paid to have that, come down in big dollars. That's why they get so rich so fast, because we have people supporting that, like the Rockefeller Foundation, the George Soros Foundation. We have all these different. And by the way, did you know how much money the Rockefellers and George Soros pay United Nations to keep them afloat in those stupid communist policies? Huge money every year. I was surprised. I thought just the U.S. government was paying for that. We don't pay that much to keep it afloat because we're a small country. We don't have the money
They,
for that. America
so
does, and I thought it was America that was
well,
supporting that.
it's hold on, no, it's America because it's a sorted web of NGOs, not for profits, things like that. Supposedly charity organizations. They
Oh,
get massive amounts of government grants from the United States. Here's in if you lot so Data Republican small r, but at Data Republican on X or on Substack on all the platforms. She breaks it all down. It's still American
who's
money.
she?
Uh, I'll actually have a conversation with later on this, but to
Okay.
everybody at Data Republican, check X, check Substack. She's available. The account is worthy. It, she Charlie Kirk promoted her this
Oh,
account.
one of my
Um,
favorites.
good account, and because she's just a brilliant data miner, and she breaks down like, well, actually, no, the United States still pay for it. It's just broken down through this
All right. I just wish
absolute web of thousands of different
I, I just wish
charities.
I just
Charities.
wish we could get rid of all
And
these
so,
donors because
hold on, you say Soros is paying for it. Well, no, Soros might give 10% to start the thing.
yeah, well, he does. He's so
Then, then those NGOs, once they get flooded with government grants from U.S. taxpayers, they just pay back the Soros Foundation
yeah.
or the Rockefeller Foundation.
Isn't that what USAID was doing? Part of the money
Yes,
from that was going back to
yes.
the Rockefeller foundations and whatnot, just almost borrowing the money at that point, because all this tax money, and the USAID is going to pay it right back. And all these other, I couldn't imagine what the lobbyists and other NGOs are getting from USAID. And thank God, hopefully that thing's closed right down. Not that I'm an American, I have to say anything, but you know what? The fact is, it just gave them too much of a head start when the proper side, the right side, it's not it doesn't have that to their avail. It's that kind of free money is not available to them. But the Democrats or the libtards sure made it did and was. It's the illegal activity from that side. It's just scary. It just scares me. Same as up here, the liberals here, the crime and corruption. It's that the only way they can stay in power and get ahead is by hook or by crook, because they ain't doing it right. That's just a liberal motto right there. So yeah, not model, not mojo. Can't remember the right term. Anyways, skip past it. But yeah, that's where we are. So yeah, not that I want to ramble on much longer, but yeah.
Well, no, we can close it out. We're I think an hour and 10. We can close it out.
All right.
Whatever. We'll talk later. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Drop us some comments. Have a good time. It was a podcast. We turned it into one.